If you've got some differences with other leaders within the Herbalife company, I would ask you to settle those differences. In the interest of future, in the interest of doing the billions we want to do. Because when top leaders don't work together, I'm telling you, it is incredibly costly to the whole company. When it's costly to the whole company, it's costly to each individual organization. But if we work together, all of that can be taken care of. Even if you've got some differences, find something you have in common and see if you can't work together while then you work on settling those differences. If Marcus Lehman and Alan Lorenz had not settled their confrontation years ago of personal and business philosophy, it would have cost Herbalife at least $500 million. But the fact that they got together those years ago and started working together as powerful leaders in Herbalife, that $500 million now belongs to all the Herbalife family because they settled their differences and worked together. And now they've formed one of the most powerful business teams in the whole world. And we're so thankful that they're with Herbalife. But I'm asking you to do the same. John and Susan had a struggle. But one of the reasons they've been #1 3 years in a row is because they found some unique way to develop the teamwork among people who had different personalities, different views, different ways of doing things, but somehow they found the genius of getting their people to work together, and then they were #1 and #1 and #1 year after year after year. And at least another $500 million would have been missing if John and Susan hadn't have had this genius of getting the people to work together. I'm asking all of you to follow that example and do the same thing. Not only work together with someone else, but get other people to work together, and then we can finish the job Mark gave us to do all those years ago. Had the president's team not responded a few years ago to Mark's call and worked together on covering the world, someone from Africa going to Europe, someone from Europe coming to America, someone from America going to Japan, if that had not happened, Herbalife today would be struggling to do $1 billion in sales instead of $2 billion. It would have cost us at least $1 billion if everybody hadn't worked together. But since all of the president's team, a big share of them, decided to work together and make it happen, now we're approaching $2 billion in sales. That's what makes the difference. About a dozen years ago, before Herbalife reached some sense of unique corporate maturity, there were some differences and some disagreements that didn't get fixed and didn't get put together, and it's cost Herbalife billions of dollars. If all of it could have been settled back there a dozen years ago, today Herbalife would be doing $3, $4, $5 billion a year in sales. Not working together is so costly. Not settling these little differences is so costly. I don't want these billions to be missing in the future. I want every billion. I'm jealous about every billion in sales because of what it represents. So let's get it done and let's work together. Now, let me leave you now with this message. 3 important words I want you to consider. First is compassion. Mark's compassion to help people was unprecedented. He demonstrated it every day. He truly wanted to reach everybody. And if it would have been at all possible for him to have reached everybody in person, he would have done that. He would have walked the streets. He would have covered the world and touched everybody individually if he possibly could have. But he couldn't touch everybody individually by himself. He touched as many as he could, signed as many autographs as he could, took as many pictures as he possibly could, flew as many miles as he could, did as many meetings as he possibly could, did as much training as he possibly could. Nobody did it better. And the reason is because he had this driving compassion that if he could reach somebody with the products, they would not suffer what he had seen other people suffer without the Herbalife products. It was his compassion that caused him to reach out and touch the people and help them to get started even though they had not much to start with. That was compassion. I'm asking you to find it within yourself, a new 21st century compassion for yourself, so that you will be driven to reach the people. You will be driven to talk to the next person. You will be driven to help somebody change their life best you can. The next word I would ask you to consider is commitment. If all of us will commit to the dream, if we will commit to the opportunity, if we will commit to the chance to be the best in influencing our industry, the best in network marketing around the world, a commitment of developing leadership second to none, of putting together a team that can finish the job over the next few years, committed to the next 20 years, if all of us will make that personal commitment, I'm telling you the collective commitment will be unbeatable as we go now country after country with the 49, 50 we've already got, using all of that information, all of that experience, getting to the rest of the countries of the world with commitment. We can do that. The collective commitment will be awesome. Our total collective commitment can solve any problem, develop any product, go any place, reach any community, and touch anybody that needs to be touched with the Herbalife opportunity. There's nothing more powerful than collective commitment. I promise you mine, and if you will promise yours to me, and I promise mine to you, and we promise ours to Herbalife, and we promise that we will work together with each other, that commitment will help us finish the job. And here's the last word, and that's courage. It's going to take some courage for some of you to settle your differences. It's going to take some courage for some of you to step out and lead the way. It's going to take courage for you to look inside and say, what do I need to correct within myself that'll make me a better person, a better leader, so that I can make my commitment to Herbalife and get the job done? Looking inside is a courageous act. Finding some things that aren't quite to your liking, some things that you need to correct, some things that you need to do. I've had to do that now for all of these years. Because if you're going to tell the story to the public, often you've got to look inside and see if there aren't some corrections you need to make. But I'm asking you to have the courage to make those corrections. If you need to apologize to somebody, I'm asking you to have the courage to give that apology. It could work wonders, not only for you and for that person, and for your organization and their organization, but all of Herbalife. If you have to take the first step, I'm asking you to have the courage to take the first step. If you have to make the first call, I'm asking you to have the courage to make the first call. And if we will take that kind of personal responsibility and look after ourselves, that we become honorable, that we become people of integrity, that we leave the door open to work with whoever wants to be responsible to get the job done in the future, there is not anything Herbalife cannot accomplish, and the next few years of the 21st century belongs to Herbalife.
This morning, and to be here, I flew in specifically for this. I'm going to do a date with Destiny for 6 days down the Gold Coast, but I came up here because I wanted to have an experience, because this is a perfect time to talk with people. Because right now, most of the world when they look at the economy and their world, do they have a great deal of excitement or foreboding? What would you say? Most of the world. No questions, foreboding. If you had to give this a season we're in right now, an economic season for most of the world, would you say it's spring, where things are just starting to grow? Summer, where you're not quite where you want to be and you're a little annoyed because it's a hot summer, you want more? Fall, where everybody's reaping like crazy? Or winter, where you're working your ass off and it doesn't seem to be paying off fully? Which season would you say the majority of the world thinks they're in? Quick. Which one? Winter. And winter. I love the way you guys say winter. Winter. Winter is the most powerful season you could possibly start a business or make any money in. And I'm not saying that because I'm positive, because if you know anything about me personally, that's not where I come from. I'm not the positive thinker that you may have seen. People say imagery of me in a seminar because I believe in the power of energy. Because without energy, nothing gets done. Lots of people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. Lots of reasons. Fear is one of them. Not know what to do is another one. But the biggest one is energy. So they see people with energy in my rooms because I believe you want to make this thing more like a rock concert, because people get bored when they're just sitting on their tail learning. So what I really believe is we need energy. But I'm here to tell you, I'm not here to come by today and say to you, it's all positive. Let's go to our garden and let's chant, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I'm here to say there's lots of weeds. Here's what they are. Let's pull those suckers out so we have the garden we want. Who's with me on this? Say aye. I'm not a believer in positive thinking. I'm a believer in intelligence. And intelligence says that if you and I are going to succeed in this environment, if you've come to a seminar like this, and you're looking for ways to maximize your growth in your business, in your life, in your finances, then you got to understand what's really going on and not kid yourself. And so if you look around, I think there's 3 keys to being a leader. There are mandates to leadership. Very simple, but you might jot them down and think about these as you listen to all the speakers this weekend or this next day or so, because it's really going to determine what happens. Because many of you come to an event like this and you're going to get excited. You're going to learn some strategies. You're going to learn some tools, some insights. And how many of you came here because you want to make some more money? I'm just curious. How many came for that as a primary reason? Say aye. How many came because you already have a business you want to take to another level? I'm curious. Say aye. How many of you don't have a vehicle? You came here looking for a way to make some money. Let me see your hand. Say aye. Most of you already have a vehicle. Good. How many of you came because you just want to improve the aspects of your life, something you want to enjoy more, experience more? Say aye. Well, we're going to cover all those. This morning, we're going to start with you. We're going to start with you because if you own a business, if you're going to be an investor, what's going to determine your success or failure is not going to be other people. It's going to be you as the leader. Ultimately, the chokehold on any business, 80% of it is the psychology of the leader. The owner or leader determines it. Financial wealth does not come from mechanics. I coach one of the top financial traders on the face of the earth. He's been my client for literally 2 decades, 20 years. He pays me $1 million a year to coach him. He emails me every day his measurements. I see him only 3-4 times a year for an hour. I get $1 million plus a piece of the upside. I don't tell you that to impress you. I tell you because it impresses me. Not bad for 4 hours work, but I've helped him for 20 years where he literally made more money than any human being in history in 1987 in a single day. Literally made more money than anybody made in a day, which in those days was $500 million in a day. Today, that's like $500 billion with inflation. But it was more money in 1987 when the American stock market had its biggest drop in a single day percentage-wise, still strongest, worst day percentage-wise. He called the market accurately, hour by hour, a week in advance, and made $500 million in a day. Now, you can't live on that, but it's a good start, gets you going. Here's the problem. He lost money for the next 2 years. He brought me in, and for 20 years, he's made money every single year for 20 years. 2008, when most hedge funds were losing 30, 40, 50, some of them 80%, he made 28% upside that year. Unbelievable. So I know a little bit about markets. I'm not just Mr. Positive Thinking. I've been studying everything about him. George Soros, who made $1 billion in a day, who outdid my friend later on in the UK on their Black Day, he turned that around as well. So I'm here to tell you, I know there are elements you can take advantage of. And the people that know winter is the best season are the people that take advantage, not because they're positive, because they're smart. But in order for you to do that, you need 3 things. First, you got to see things as they are, but not worse than it is. Are you with me on this? Because when you talk to the most Aussies today, let me just explain something to you. Most Aussies today have a little bit of nervousness about the economy. Raise your hand if you can relate to that, to your friends, have a little bit of nervousness, not quite thrilled with the economy. Raise your hand if that relates. Let me just get a sense. How many know Aussies think it's the best economy it could ever be? Okay, 3 people on drugs. Good, very good. Here's the truth. There's a little nervousness because of Europe, obviously. Nervousness because China's still growing, but maybe not as fast. Big piece here. Nervousness because, oh my God, we got a few little taxes coming in here now, right? Carbon tax. But interest rates are down 2% in just, the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months. Pretty nice. But there's this nervousness. Here's what you got to know. If you're freaking nervous here, you better not leave Australia. Because there are 7 billion people on the planet, and they all freaking wish they lived in Australia. You're in the best position of any country in the world. That's not to say there aren't challenges. Your real estate market here is definitely inflated to a mass level, and you haven't had a big correction. There are things that are going to occur here. But you got to see it as it is, but not worse than it is, or you're not going to act out of fear. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Say I. And why do most people make it worse than it is? You tell me. Why do most people make it worse than it? Say, oh, you can't even believe. Why even try? The whole economy is just going to tank anyway. Why do people come up with this stuff? Because they're so afraid to what? What's the word no one likes to say? Let's hear it. They're so afraid to fail. So they look for a story to cover them. It's like somebody says to me, I can't lose weight because I'm big boned. No, you're freaking fat. Let's just tell the truth here. Right? Is it true? You're fat. I mean, I'm not making a judgment. You're fat. I was big boned. That was my story. I was 38 pounds heavier than I am now, and my story was I'm big boned. I'm still big boned, and I'm 38 pounds lighter. We come up with a story because we're afraid to fail. What you have to do is see it as it is, not fake yourself and say everything's positive, everything's wonderful. You'll get killed doing that in business. You got to be smart. You got to see it as it is, but not worse than it is so you don't take advantage. Does this make sense? Yes or no? Second key is really simple. You got to see it better than it is or you won't do anything. That's the second key. You got to see it better than it is. That's what a leader brings to the table. So bottom line is, you got to see it better than it is. If you saw a guy like Ted Turner, multi-billionaire, amazing influence, created CNN. Think about this. When he first came up with the idea of 24-hour news, what do you think most people thought of that idea? First of all, they said there isn't that much news. He almost went bankrupt 4 times, but he kept seeing it better than it was. He saw the truth. He saw the challenges. He didn't make it worse than it is so he didn't panic. He saw it better so there was something to move towards that he could make happen. What does it say? Without a vision, people what? Perish. If you don't have a compelling view of the future, you're in trouble. And here's the challenge. Most of the world right now is in this place. In America, it's the highest it's ever been. 63% of Americans now believe the best days are behind them. They believe specifically that the future for themselves and their kids will be far less than it is today. That's 72%, by the way, of Germans. 81% of French people believe that. Now, Aussies are in a great place, so one thing you got to do is celebrate where the hell you live. Give a little hand for living in Australia, ladies and gentlemen. Come on now. So, if you're going to be smart, you got to go, we got a young group of economy. We've got a young generation coming up. We certainly have some ties to some amazing resources that are natural resources for us. And yes, the spending is not as high, and yes, there's going to be a correction. But guess what? Some people's winter is devastating. Other people's winter is mild. So far, yours is mild. I'm not saying it won't get worse. But here's what I can tell you. If you see it as is and you see it better than it is, you'll know something. The greatest investors, the greatest financial success in history, the first man to become a billionaire by investing alone is a man who was a friend of mine. He died about 4 years ago named Sir John Templeton. Sir John Templeton started out with nothing. He wasn't Sir John. He was a guy that basically grew up in this tiny little town with nothing to his name. He worked hard, and he decided to save his money and find a way to invest. But he had one cool secret. He realized when things are going well, what do people want for their property when things are going really well? A high price or a low price? Which one? High price. When things are going well, do they want a high price or a low price for their shares? Which one? High price. When things are going unhappy, when things are terrible, when things are going well, people think it's going to go well forever. When they think it's going bad, they think it's going to go bad for how long? Forever. When things are going really poor, what does that guy want for his shares or his home? A high price or whatever he can get? Which one? Whatever he can get. So his mindset was really simple. I'm going to make all my money, write this down, during times of maximum pessimism. I'll make all my money during times of maximum pessimism. If you can, when everybody else is freaking out, seeing it worse than it is, you can see how it really is, not kid yourself, not just be positive, but see it better than it is and see where the advantage is. And you can do the third step I left out, which is once you see it better than it is, you got to make it that way. You got to come up with a strategy and action plan to make it that way. If you can do those three things, you can take advantage. And he did it. I'll tell you how he did it. When Hitler invaded Europe, when he actually invaded Poland, this guy took $10,000, $5,000 he saved and $5,000 he borrowed, which back in those days was a huge sum of money. And he went out and bought every stock he could get his hands on that was under $2 on the New York Stock Exchange, including companies that many people thought would go bankrupt. He just bought them across the board. $10,000. Now, by the way, that was one of the worst winter moments of maximum pessimism because everybody went, oh my God, Hitler's now storming Europe. We tried to appease him. It's not working. He's going to take, and countries are dropping. Everybody thinks the bad things are going to go on forever. Here's what we all know about seasons. Winter does not last forever, does it? What always follows winter, my friends? What? Springtime. A new opportunity is always there. But when you're in winter, you think it's forever. And so everybody's freaking out, so share prices went through the floor. So what he got for $10,000 was worth its weight in gold. And by the way, 5 years later when the war was over, what happened to shares of stocks? What happened as the company started to rebuild? Exploded back up. That $10,000 investment made him a billionaire over the course of 2 decades. He didn't stop there. Where would be the worst place to think of investing after World War II, would you think? Where was the country most destroyed? Even more than Germany. Which country? Japan. It had radioactive places. Guess how much they want for land that's radioactive? Literally, he bought things for pennies on the dollar. And if you remember, in the late 80s, who was the country that was dominating the economies around the world? It was Japan. And guess what he did? Sold it all right there at the peak when everybody there thought it was going so great. He always made money in terms of times of maximum pessimism. So what I'm here to say to you today is this. This morning, I want to work with you as a leader. I want to give you some strategies and tools that you can use to immediately shift your psychology because that's going to be 80% of your wealth building. 20% is going to be mechanics of how to do it.